The advantages of living in Auroville. This is Wake Up Chris speaking with a video about the advantages of living in Auroville, a spiritual community in India. Let's see how many I can come up with. Again and again people ask me, how about living in Auroville? What it's like, what are the advantages and disadvantages? I've been living there for about 6 years. And I must say it was the best time of my life in many regards. Still, I'm not living there right now. So maybe at some point I have to make another videos about the disadvantages of living in Auroville. But right now is a good time to live in Auroville. Less madness. So, first of all, reason number 1. You're living in a sustainable community and society. It is constructed in a green way of day-to-day living. The principles are turquoise, but the day-to-day living is mostly green. So you're doing something for the environment. You're living a sustainable life instead of participation in destroying the environment. Secondly, you're living in a spiritual community. That means you can actually talk about spirituality with other people who think more or less exactly like you. This is very rare. Normally you're 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 10,000, and it's very hard to find like-minded people. Thirdly, it's a place of power. Energetically, it's a very powerful place. So it's quite nice to live there. And at the same time, that's the next reason, it's a good place to learn. There's all this power accumulated there, makes for very quick inner development. The fifth reason is you can live quite healthily there. Most of the food you can get there is organic, and apart from the cashew farms that are still here and there, it's basically you're free of pesticides and herbicides and pollution. Sixth reason, you're very close to nature. There's forest, there's beaches, and nature is very conducive to spiritual development. And it's not really a city, but the next city, which is a very small town, Pondicherry, is close by, a few kilometers. So if you need anything from a city, it's just a 20-30 minutes drive with a motorbike, or an hour or so with a bicycle. Seventh reason is there are a lot of practitioners of different kinds of medicine who do not quarrel with one another. They work together. Homeopathy, Western medicine, osteopathy, Ayurveda and Siddha, and so on. Eighth reason, you can really try out yourself. There are all kinds of jobs available for people who show initiative, and people are always needed. It's a very small society, 2,000-3,000 people, many of them children, and people need other inspired people there who are willing to do something. So you can try out things that normally no one would let you do without the specific certificate in other places, which usually leads to a higher self-esteem, because you can see that more is possible than you think without the specific training. The ninth reason, it is a place that is constructed around principles of the second tier of spiral dynamics, or of spirituality or enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. It's not rooted in the basic principles of the capitalistic industrial agricultural society that is currently destroying the planet. So it's a non-violent society that is not based on money and greed, but on spiritual principles. So this might be one of the only places, or the only place in the world where you can live a relatively normal life and at the same time a spiritual life. It's based on the teaching of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, which is a teaching of the third tier in spiral dynamics terms, so far beyond teal and violet and so on. And it is not some form of cult or religion. It's very flexible. Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, they have described all kinds of spiritual practices, and the integral yoga is a way to find your path within all these possibilities. Also, since they were a teacher duo of a man and a woman, this kind of teaching is accessible to both men and women. There's no focus on a male or female kind of path. And the 10th reason is the internationality. There are people living of more than 40 countries. It's about half Indian nationality and half international nationality. So you have the best of both. You have the immense flexibility and openness and friendliness and also innate spirituality of India. And at the same time, all the inputs of German, French, Dutch, Italian, American, Korean, Israeli, Russian, more than 40 different nationalities with all their advantages, which was very important for Sri Aurobindo. He was a very big fan of culture. The main language, of course, is English, which is still one of the main useful languages and used languages in India, because there are more than 20 official languages. So sometimes the Indians have to talk in English because especially the North and South Indians, they do not speak languages that are related to each other. So of course it is an advantage to know some Tamil, to learn some Tamil, which I have tried 3 times and failed because it's a very difficult language. But English is just fine. You will get along very well with English. So my personal opinion is that Auroville would not be possible if it were to consist of 100% Indian nationals, and neither would it be possible if it were to consist of 100% non-Indian nationals, or if it were to exist in another country. In India, it has been tolerated and supported by the Indian government for more than 50 years since its foundation in the 60s. India is a wonderful country, and since Sri Aurobindo was a national hero, they have supported this endeavor of a future city, of a human experiment in living together in a different way. And it's hard to imagine another country which would do that. Lastly, I want to comment on visiting Auroville as a tourist. There's no way to experience Auroville within a few days or weeks. You really have to stay there for several months as a long-term guest, involving yourself in whatever's going on there, working together with the citizens to get an impression of what Auroville is like. Just as you cannot get an impression if you go to a certain country like France or Germany or Scotland or Australia or US or Canada or Brazil, and then just have a look around for a few days and lie at the beach and eat in a restaurant, and then ask a few residents how it is to live in this country, and then form an opinion based on that. That's just not enough. Auroville is like a small country within India. It's a microcosm. It needs many years to understand it, and even then you probably haven't understood what's going on there, because the founder said Auroville will happen in spite of its inhabitants. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for listening and watching, and see you soon. I forgot to mention the weather. For some people it's a boon, for some people it's an advantage that it's so hot there. It's never below 17 degrees Celsius, which is 62 Fahrenheit. But not everyone likes this subtropical heat, especially in the summer. And of course, one more advantage I forgot is that the costs of living are not as high in India as they are in rich countries all over the world, or in large Indian cities like Delhi. But of course there are some costs. It's not that you go there and you don't need any funds.